pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. We had a quick non-public before for looking at police prosecutors. We opened up bids last week for police prosecutors, and I believe Chief Briggs came forward with a recommendation. And Selectman Wilson's willing to make a motion.
Motion to hire under contract Burley Law Office for prosecutor for the town of Kingston.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. One abstention. Just point out it was published. We had 2 applicants, and Melissa's familiar with the town. She volunteered her services when the Plastow contract did get canceled, and we appreciate what you did for the town. It didn't go unnoticed by at least me and the rest of the select board, so we do appreciate that, and we're happy to award the bid to you. So thank you. We have an appointment for Mr. Griffin.
Well, my name is Bob Griffin, LER Realty Company in West Kingston. I made an application to see if I could hold a public meeting here August 7th. So I think that's the application in front of you.
Yeah, for DES, it's for the pond, right?
The subject of discussion will be Long Pond, right?
Okay. So that was the facility use. Does anyone have any questions? We had the DES report for him.
How's everything going with that, as far as getting it into compliance?
Well, yeah, if you want to get it, yeah. Well, this is a step in their progress, as probably you already know. The DES folks, as long as you continue down the road, they're satisfied as you go. One of the steps, glitches in this thing is you have to notify Fish and Game, and they have their own little guidelines, and one of their guidelines is to hold a public meeting 15 days or 30 days ahead of time of when you plan on pulling the drain. So this is August 7th is within more or less 30 days of that. I thought I would, in June, I sent letters to all lakefront owners that this was going to happen. I think I will, if this meeting goes okay, then gets going, I will send them another, just a short, that the meeting's going to take place. And then they can come if they want to questions or answers or whatever. I don't see it as any great big problem. I own the water rights, and I just think I'm exercising my water rights if the state asks me to do it. You can say no, but you know, I paddle uphill, so.
Could I ask the DES letter back from last year? It was asking to clean some of the strainers so the water could flow over without going into the non-flow portions. Has it been cleaned up, the strainers?
I might have a letter. I'm not sure. One of the items on this thing is they just want you to keep the wasteway clean.
Yep.
Yep. So
But there was also, I thought, trees were blocking it and stuff like that, so the water's being diverted.
I don't remember that.
Okay.
on this latest one, I don't remember that as being a thing.
Does anyone have any issues with him using the facilities on August 7th for his hearing? Just want to make a motion?
Make a motion, we sign that request.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, sir.
And it'd probably be 7 o'clock. I don't hang around too long, so. Yeah, it won't, I don't think it'll be a long meeting. And I guess what preparations should I make? Come early and set up chairs, what I have to do?
I think the chairs will be set.
Thank you, gentlemen,
Thank you.
and I will be sending, Board of Selectmen Kingston, Board of Selectmen Danville, notices, and it'll be in the paper.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're at our first public comment. Does anyone care to make a public comment? All right, moving right on to old business. Hello, 3 Cardinal Road. If you want to step up to the microphone. Nice to see you again.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Anything you care to share, or?
No, my understanding is that we were to come back tonight, or I don't even know if we really had to come back tonight, but
Yeah,
you were getting a report from the town attorney as to which of the 3 approaches to solving the encroachment problem
yeah,
he preferred the town to take. I think Rich was going to make a comment in regards to whether or not any of the 3 impacted the drainage systems that are in that area, and
yeah.
you were going to say we like A, B, or C, and
So Rich did go check it out, and there's no issues for drainage for the town. And we did go to our attorney, and our attorney recommended the lot line adjustment.
correct.
And I believe that was the consensus of the board. I don't think we're looking to just do an even swap on a lot line. You already surveyed it. It would strictly be the closing is all it would. Actually, you gotta go to the planning board, and then is there even a closing cost?
Shouldn't be on the lot line.
I have since had my apprehension.
Yeah,
in
just
that.
the recording fee or whatever.
Right, right.
So if someone wants to make a motion for that,
I make a motion that we proceed with the lot line adjustment for 3 Cardinal Road, an even swap of property pending planning board approval.
Second.
any further discussion? Does the planning board have any issues with that at all? Seeing you're here as a chair? No? Okay. Well, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so it's unanimous.
Let me make sure I understand you. And this is the final solution, so to speak?
All what you have to do, you still have to go to the planning board.
Correct, okay, that was,
But in other words, we are signing off on it. There's gonna be
Okay.
no cost for, it's just a land swap. The only cost will be whatever the town has to incur, which is the recording fee only.
I was into the planning board, we have the applications, we're currently going through them to get it in before August 11th, I believe it is, the deadline.
Yep.
So, we're on the same wavelength on that.
So hopefully it rectifies your issues, and you'll be able to do whatever you want to do with the property once that's all set.
Well, we're gonna turn and run then, and thank you very much for your time.
Okay, appreciate you coming down.
Appreciate it, right on.
Thank you, glad we could work it out. Next item is John's Auto and Truck.
So he said he's ready to put the bins out.
Hey, Don, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to speak in that mic with the fan going. I can't hear anything.
So I got a call from Rick, the owner, and he wanted to know if we were gonna move forward. We talked last year about putting containers out there for white goods, tires, batteries, those types of things. And I believe we need to go, and Glenn could perhaps help us, we need to go probably to the planning board, I would guess. So John's Truck and Auto, I don't know if you're aware that last year, I spoke with him. Rich was involved in it.
I'm aware of it.
Okay.
In fact, I believe I was at a meeting where it got discussed.
So we need to go visit the planning board on that, is that correct?
Because it would be an addition to activity on the site, it should be recorded as an amendment to the site plan.
Okay.
So, yes.
So if the board would like, I can take the lead on that with John's Truck and Auto, meet with the planning board, and if that's what the board chooses to do.
I think that's the way to go, just so everybody blesses off on it.
Okay.
Rich?
I'm fine with it.
I think it's a very nice gesture on this business owner's part. I truly appreciate it, and I would hope the town would work with him to come up with some sort of pamphlet that we could put on the website, but specific to what he is willing to take. I'm sure there's gonna be some problems with it, but as much as we can limit his problems, and I reiterate that he's doing this out of the kindness of his heart at no cost to the town.
That's right.
So I would like to promote as best we can so that he doesn't incur any additional costs, because once you do that, you worry about what people are gonna drop off there. So if we can educate the people of what he's willing to take,
Sure.
and try it out and see how it goes.
I'll come back to the board and give you an update.
And thank Challenge Auto and Truck for pursuing it. Rich St. Lear.
2 items.
You guys are aware of the Door Road situation where contractor encroached on other folks' property, moved some stone walls that are both the town boundary and residence property, where we've already been threatened with lawsuits from 1 or 2 of the residents. Before I go down there, I'm gonna wanna see a full survey so we know what the town owns and what the town doesn't own. So that's my recommendation. I don't have any numbers because I haven't talked to Dennis this week, but after thinking about it, you're not gonna catch me down there. They're not suing me personally. So,
I don't blame you based on the conversation the other day at public comment. The person is hot, and rightly so. If
Absolutely
if his
rightly
property was
so.
damaged, I don't blame him one bit. But I think we should cover each other, and I think you're doing your due diligence to make sure what is town property, what's his property, and how can we rectify it as best we can on the town's end versus what he has to do privately, he will do privately.
correct.
Rich and I met with one of the property owners. He's willing to have Rich fix it. And Brox's 2 properties out there, they're willing to let us do the same thing. That's correct too, Rich?
But the first gentleman you're talking about wants his bounds reset.
Once his bounds
So,
are set, right?
in order to do that, you have to have a survey,
That's right, yep.
because right now it's just a pile of rocks that have been moved.
So someone want to make a motion?
Well, hang on. Is there money in your budget to do that?
We'll find it. Yep.
I mean, what approximate cost are we talking for that? Because we're just doing the road itself, correct?
It's just, I don't even know for sure what the right-of-way is. I think it's 2 rods, 33.5 feet. So, a little research. I believe there was a survey done by Ken Briggs years and years ago. I don't know if we can use that as reference points, but, needs to be done. I don't have I'm fine with it. If you guys you don't need a vote, your vote will be when you sign the PO when I give it to you. So I'll hopefully have a PO in front of you for your next meeting or sitting downstairs, ready to be signed the next few days.
I would just assume know the cost before we,
Okay.
Absolutely, yep, because I don't have a clue. I'm gonna give Dennis a bunch of information, what I have and what can you do and what can you use, and trying not to recreate the wheel. Second issue is PFOAs. You all know the DES, the committee has accepted the new lower standards. Some are as low as 8 parts per trillion from 70. I'm gonna recommend again that you guys get a hold of your lawyer and start working to go against DES. The town has accepted responsibility, you know, 2.5 years ago. I think the town was given bad information at that hearing that was here in the Selectmen's, in this room. There's another town not too far from here, and I believe it's Greenland, has absolutely refused to accept responsibility for their PFOA contaminations. So them and they and the DES are going back and forth. The only problem with that is the residents are not being served. So it's a decision you guys got to make, but we're talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars here. This is going to have a huge impact on taxes in years to come. You've got probably 10 more systems to put in. $40,000 just to put the systems in, and $2,500 a year to maintain them. And I don't think it's going to get any better, because the circle is going to keep getting bigger and bigger. And all you have to do is look at the numbers. There are PFOAs that some of these wells show contamination that didn't even exist 30 years ago when the fire department was using foam. They didn't even exist. We're making new chemicals every year, every day. So how the DES can claim it was caused by firefighter foam when these wells are contaminated with PFOAs that weren't even in the mix of that foam when it was used by the fire department in a legal manner, I don't get it. So I just think you need to get your lawyer involved, at least get an opinion, look at it. We're gonna roll over and just spend, you know, $400,000 or $500,000 of taxpayers' money in the next 5 years? I hope not.
But I would ask you, Rich, all of us sitting here weren't here 2.5 years ago when that was done. My question would be, have we ever looked at our Primex, our insurance carrier for that? And did they deny it because it's hazmat, or?
The answer is yes, I did do that for the town, and they absolutely said, you're on your own.
Not them.
Yep, because it's a hazmat, you probably spilled it, you know, what the state was saying, we spilled the chemicals ourselves or used it, we're on our own.
Okay, so they won't cover us for it, but I guess my question, would they fight for the town or no as well, their legal services?
I'm gonna say no, because they have no responsibility. Why would they spend $40,000 or $50,000 in legal fees?
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. I know I wouldn't if I was running the business.
And then I guess my next thing is, I think we'd want to have some sort of, I don't know if we just want to, if we were going to look at it again, do we go to our town council or do you go to a specialist for it?
Well, I can tell you, Sumner has advised you on other DES issues. And if it's, you know, he's actually recommended other council that are familiar with different projects. So he's not afraid to say this is not one for me. I would start local and then go from there. Because your town council has done battle with DES numerous times. He's come out the winner quite a few times.
I mean, these rules are not officially in effect yet, are they? Until October, and it also requires the legislator to approve it, doesn't it?
It's
No,
done.
JACO, that's what I thought. JACO
It's
approved
done.
it.
Yeah, they're not gonna start enforcing it, I think, until October 1st.
That's right.
An administrative board, I thought it was gonna have to go for a full vote, and no, it went to an administrative board, JACO, and JACO just blindly said, sure.
So we're already in August, we get September,
Yeah.
and August 1st is right, you know,
I think
October 1st.
I think what's critical in reading about the situation in East Kingston, that's created by
Septic.
septic. So which which goes hand in hand with the questions that we asked the gentleman from EPA. So I would think the first thing we may want to do when we do any testing, and he had a good point, test for caffeine. Because if it's coming from septic and it's going to be polluting that well, and we're getting samples that include caffeine, then chances are it's coming from that person's own septic system.
Or the next door neighbors,
Next door
or
neighbors,
whatever.
Right.
I had a quick conversation with Rich, and he brings a valid point. I mean, DES was here, and they said they could put fingerprints on different chemicals.
Sure.
And, I mean, if the fingerprints match up to the firefighter foam, okay, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, but you're talking about a test that costs $272 a sample, and I'm sure the putting fingerprints on it is insanely more expensive. I think personally, I look at this just because they waved a magic wand and now suddenly say this is super toxic, that we should not install any more water filtration systems until we have a lengthy discussion with our council before the town just starts blowing money, because I can think of no better word for it. You know, everybody knows what 70 parts per trillion is looking like. It's
Yeah.
An eye drop in 7 Olympic swimming pools. This is even less than that. And
Down to 11.
it's ridiculous. And as Rich is saying, none of this can even be proven to be the town's fault. I think the fingerprint thing, I don't think they were correct on that. You know, you can get roughly within what type of chemical.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
You know, certain, but from that, 60 things could have been made with that certain chemical compound. One of them might have been firefighting foam. It's.
So do we want to, I mean, based on time,
I think we should have the discussion.
have a discussion with our attorney?
I think a face-to-face and, you know, if need be, getting him in contact with our consultant at Stantec as well, so he has all the information and the technical information, and he can decide whether it needs to go for.
How about if we plan some meeting with Stantec and Sumner to come in?
And I would suggest, I had a lengthy conversation with Andrea,
Yeah,
and it was she's very knowledgeable in that. I'd suggest we invite her in as well.
Andrea Kenter?
She's doing the East Kingston
yeah.
contaminant thing.
Okay, so if you can coordinate to get all 3 of them into select meeting, and we could do a non-meeting with council.
To a select board meeting, but you want.
Yeah, and the only thing is, Rich, I know you bleed this heart. Your heart bleeds for this town, but I thought the health officer was supposed to be taking over PFOAs and that sort of thing. And I appreciate your
I'm
involvement.
not gonna ignore the situation, guys.
I know you're not gonna ignore it.
I'll
It's,
keep
your heart
pounding on
is,
your desk.
I get it, but I believe the health officer should be here and involved. He should be sitting here right alongside of you, but, you know, that's a different matter. Anyways, so we'll let you know when we can get a meeting coordinated.
So the other thing, one more thing, I would suggest that your Stantec, Dave Elwine, I would suggest that you have him refer any calls from residents back to the town, back to the selectman's office. I know he spent probably an hour and a half talking to local resident about wells and things like that. You're gonna pay for that. I'm sure you're paying him $125 an hour for that call.
Okay.
So I would just like get a little bit of information, that's good, but those same people, we've had 2 or 3 public hearings now about PFOAs.
And we're gonna have another one in October.
Haven't been here, so I don't think we should be paying our hired gun a bunch of money to
Okay.
answer the phone.
Does everyone else concur with that?
Thank you.
Susan, can you get a call into Dave?
Well, it shouldn't go to the select office, it should go to the health inspector. If there are questions from residents, he can
Yes.
inform them of when these items are taking place, he can field those calls.
But I'm saying he shouldn't be answering it. He should refer the people instead of having a long conversation with them. To the health officer, correct.
So I'm gonna tell Dave to refer those calls to us.
To the health officer. One
Should be
okay with that?
documented, should be a form,
What?
should be a form
Yeah.
Thank you.
documented.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Rich.
Dates and times he speaks to people.
New business. Are you Devon?
Yeah, yes.
Devon?
Stopped in today with, to ask some questions about the facility.
Yeah, there was a thing in your,
Very preliminary, but she wanted, just really a bit of explain a little bit, but. And I did print out some information quickly. This was last minute, so it's not my most professional looking. But I can hand this to you as we go over the notes.
yeah.
I wasn't sure how many of us were to be here, so if you just.
So just give some people some, it is very preliminary, but she came by. She does vintage finds and repurposed goods. It's been at several different locations, and she's looking for a new location to hold this. It's twice a year?
Ideally, yeah. I mean, that would be the ideal, but, in the past, we've done it twice a year. Would you
So
like
she
one too?
was, she came to Kingston Days this weekend and was awe-inspired by the beautiful plains and said this would be a great place.
Well, it's funny because a lot of our vendors are from the area. One lives right down the street here. And they've mentioned this it's just a really rough map that I drew up quickly because I just came in here recently, of how we propose to do it, but it can be certainly modified. I just didn't have a status for that, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was as expansive as it is. I didn't realize the property was as large as it is.
Yeah.
And that it was as flat.
You want to sit down and speak into the microphone?
Sure.
And state your name.
My name is Devon Chenard, and I am the founder-director of the Vintage Bazaar. So just a little background. It's a festival I established it in Salisbury, Massachusetts in 2011. It was held there until throughout 2016. And since then, we've tried relocating it in a few different places. My family and I had moved to southern Maine, so we were trying to host it in southern Maine. Coincidentally, we're opening a store over in Amesbury, Massachusetts. So we're trying to migrate back down to this area. But our vendors have come from all over, many from New Hampshire, parts of Massachusetts, Maine, and other parts of the country as well. It's typically a 2-day show, so it's usually a Saturday and a Sunday. On Saturday, let me go back to my notes here, but as you can see about the About Us section, it just kind of gives you some information about the bazaar. That we do it twice a year outdoors as well as twice a year indoors. It's to put it in layman's, to kind of bottle it all together into one. It's basically a antique show and a craft show together. That's a hybrid show of the two. But there's live music and food vendors as well. In the past, we have had libations, beer and wine, but we've also done it without the beer and wine. So that wouldn't be a hindrance on either way if we were to go down that path or not. It wouldn't be a deal breaker for us. Our biggest thing is just making sure that we have flat property. Tents like to be on, work much better on flat than hills, and trying to find something flat and of size and all together is challenging. It worked quite well in Salisbury, but that was a privately owned piece of property, and the owners were getting older and not really wanting to have so much going on at their farm. And to be honest, we ran out of space to put the vendors. It's a flower farm, and it wasn't quite flat, and it really wasn't going to work for us long term. But seeing how that's set up over there got me thinking that maybe it could work. It could work here. We did it about a month ago on June 22nd and 23rd over at Woodsome Farm, which is a city-owned property of Amesbury. Loved the property. We would have done it there again in the future, but they just passed beginning stages of development of that farm. It will be used to rebuild the school that's next to it. The elementary school is an elementary school directly next to it, and that field will now be where their baseball fields and concession stand and all of that will be. So the long-term wouldn't really work there. And it's not nearly as graded as this is hard pack-wise. Was once a cow pasture, so you kind of have some spongy spots and things like that that don't make it ideal, but we were willing to work with it. But now that this bill's been passed, it's kind of, or vote's been passed, I should say, it's kind of up in the air as to where that goes. And that was recently passed and kind of had us scrambling, my company scrambling to find a new location. That's why I'm here. Usually it's done in June outdoors, and then again in late September, early October. We're looking at the October 5th and the 6th. So if you look at the top of the sheet that I gave you, the show dates are the 5th and the 6th. We do require days of setup, and then a day for cleanup. We have a cleanup, myself and my staff, we come in and make sure that if it's smaller, if it's bigger than my pinky fingernail, then it's being picked up. So we just make sure we go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. I don't know what you call the different sections of the planes that are in between, but for this particular meeting, I'm just gonna call them sections 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. On the map. And again, this was a very last-minute drawing, so I apologize. I could provide something much more professional in the future. But I'm calling number 1 was directly across from the state park. So we would be proposing using, I have 2 options, using, depending on how we lay out, section 2 and section 3 would be where the majority of, that would be where the festival, the show itself would be contained. Sections 4 and 5, as well as section 1, would be used for parking. And if it was allowed, we would go through the steps of trying to see if we can use the field over, as you pull in off to the left at the state park entrance, and or using any of the municipal lots that you're using for the Kingston Days, the school, things like that. I don't know if we'd need overflow. I ran some numbers based on, I did some measurements after I went to the Selectmen office this afternoon, and I went down over there with my measuring wheel and did some measurements, and it looks like, and I could be, you might know more than I, but it looks like in those parking areas that we could fit around 900 to 1,000 cars at a time. That definitely works with our business model, given the crowds that come and the turnover that happens. Generally speaking, they spend about 2 to 2.5 hours at the festival, so there is that turnover that happens. So we may not need the overflow, but I'd like to have a backup option just in case.
What I would tell you is, first off, what you would have to do for any of our facility use,
Yep.
you have to approach the police chief, the road agent, and the fire chief to get their blessing, first in a form. Okay, then once they approve it, it would come to us. All right, they tend to have their own questions. And
Sure.
just looking at what you said, just so you know, we have no say over the state park. You would have to ask them for
Exactly.
parking. All right, and same thing with the schools. The school, that's the school district separate from the town, so you'd have to ask them for parking.
Okay.
I wouldn't be a fan of parking on the plains, to be honest with you. I wouldn't have a problem parking along the plains, but where you're showing on parcel number 3, parking on the plains,
Yep.
it just turns into problems with any leaking oils, gas, everything else like that. I mean, if it was handicap, it'd be one thing, but another thing for just everyone to park.
Okay. Where do they park, just so I'm familiar, where do they park for the Kingston Days?
They can park along the road.
Because they had us park.
Yeah,
The
pretty
reason
much
I
they
ask
let
is
them park along the road, and then, yes, it is connected with the school approved, so then the park,
Okay.
and the state park as well has
Okay.
done that in the past, but
That was
that's
a-
separate, you
That's
gotta
a
get that
misunderstanding on
approval
my
from
part,
them.
because they hadn't, when I came here, they had me park in section 4. I parked on the field, I parked on the plains.
Was that the car show?
What's that?
Was that the car show?
It was this past Saturday.
So it was probably the car show.
It was
no,
there were
that was-
motorcycles, I didn't
I
see
don't know,
any,
but
I
we
didn't see any
They have a
antique.
motorcycle show and a car show.
Yeah, I
so
didn't see the
that's-
cars, but I saw the motorcycles.
Yeah, I think, was that Sunday? I guess it's car show.
Yeah,
But we typically don't park vehicles on the plains unless it's like an event like a motorcycle show or a car show.
Okay, so if that's no problem, if that's how we need to be done, you said they could park along the road?
Yep.
On either side, or on the side where the fire department
Typically, but
is?
the chiefs, the fire chief and the police chief could answer those questions for
Okay.
you. Okay, but yes, typically they park on both sides, but there has to be some coordination. You know, the fire chief's gonna wanna have access to be able to get in there, and the police chief, he's gonna look at a traffic congestion type problem, and he'd be able to answer those questions.
Okay. Let me just see what else I have here.
The only other thing I'd ask you is, I'll be blunt and I'll ask a straight question. What did you pay to Salisbury when you were doing it there?
It's varied. That was a privately owned piece of property, and so we did it, and it was and I was friends with the farm owner, so it was not much.
Okay, because we don't have a set fee for an event like this. I will tell you, the only thing that we have to go on, Susan looked real quick, there was a road race, and they paid a fee of $2,500, but there was a difference. There was police and everything else involved. I don't know what the fee would be, because I don't think we have a set fee for something like this. So we'd have to talk about that and try and figure out what is.
I can tell you the most comparables, it would be at Woodsome Farm, which was in Amesbury this past June, and that is the city now owns that property. Technically it's 365 acres, of which we used a very small amount, comparatively speaking, for that, and the fee was $1,000.
Yeah.
And that did not include, we did not need a fire detail, although the deputy chief did come around and make sure that we met the parameters of how wide the aisles were and where the exits and entrance points were, things of that nature. They had to look at the propane tanks of food trucks and things like that. But we did have to pay for the police details, and I believe there was, at that one I have to look it up, but I believe there were 3 each day.
I mean, I see as a benefit for the town to have something, and I enjoy having it use the planes, but we are talking about, there's people coming here to sell their wares, making a profit.
Correct.
So I would definitely see there would have to be some sort of fee for the
Oh, we would
town.
agree
I
with
don't know
that.
what it is, and we'd have to sit down there and look at that, but
Sure.
does anyone else have any questions or any concerns, I should say, of doing something like this?
It seems like you've done this before, but, and I agree with Kevin that it would be a great event, you know, in that time frame in October, there's not much that takes place, and we definitely want to utilize that property, you know, for events and gatherings, but, gotta go see the 3 wise men about that. And
Sure, no,
make
that's
sure
no
that they're all
problem.
on board with it.
And this is not I'm looking from a timing standpoint, so I would be more than happy to set up appointments with them as soon as possible within the next, if they were available to see me tomorrow, I would.
They all work Monday through Friday typically.
So I would be, you know, more than willing to get the ball rolling sooner rather than later. My question would be, so let's just hypothetically, they all approve and say, that's fine and whatnot. Would it be a way of meeting with you all again, or would I need to
Yeah,
wait
I think
again?
it's something we'd have to be fluid about and talk. I would say start with them
Okay.
and start the conversation with them as far as if you were going to introduce alcohol or not. Okay, better to talk about that earlier than later.
Right. I
All
mean,
right,
the rules
and
are
I think the
different.
number one discussion would be with the police chief on that. If that's something that it comes down, we're going to look before anything comes to us. It has their signature on it saying that they're okay with the event, and that's what we base it on.
Okay. Yeah, the rules are different. We've done the a libations area in Massachusetts, and in Amesbury and in Salisbury, and we've done it also in Maine. But the Maine rules are different than Massachusetts rules.
Which is different from
so
New
I can only
Hampshire.
assume that it's different for New Hampshire. So I'd have to just kind of figure what
Yeah.
those rules would be. Like I said,
I'm
it's
just
not a
saying, you
deal
don't want to
breaker.
spring that on us. You don't want to go looking to do
Absolutely
that and
not.
then spring it on us at a month before, because
Right.
you probably won't have the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Because to be honest with you, even October, that's coming pretty quick. We're
It's-
already in August.
And that's why I was not expecting to not be able to use Woodsum Farm for the fall. And now that it doesn't look like it's a possibility, we're kind of behind the 8 ball. Usually our vendors have already told us that they're coming and have signed up and things like that. So we're trying to just navigate through and make it.
Actually, if you don't mind, I'm gonna ask you, so these are all independent vendors over there, right?
Yep, crafters, antique.
And how much do you charge them?
It can vary. We charge anywhere, typically around $300 for them to have a booth, but it depends on what they need for the, typically it's a 10 by 10.
And you have 1,500 vendors? I mean, I'm sorry, 150 vendors is what I was told?
It's 150 spots, so
Okay.
it can be 75 vendors, it just depends. And we've, a couple of questions, as you can see where it's kind of dotted around here on the map. That would be for temporary fencing, what we typically do. We fence it in so that
Yep.
people can't come in and,
Okay.
you know, grab things and go. We'd be putting up, that's why we would need the couple of days ahead of time, just so we can get the stage in and the fencing put up and things of that nature. The fencing is just the plastic fencing that you can get.
Yep, snow fencing.
Basically, that's like, it can come in bright orange or green or black. Ours happens to be green, and it goes on the metal stakes that have the little clips. I think they're like, I think they call them garden steel stakes, but they're about 4 or 5 feet tall. Well, the stakes aren't, the stakes are taller, but the fence itself is about 4 feet. So as long as you didn't foresee that a problem. That's not fenced in at Kingston Days, so I wasn't sure if fencing would be allowed. And is it dog friendly or not? It doesn't matter to us, but we've been dog friendly. We've also had venues where we weren't dog friendly. Is Kingston?
Kingston Days brings dogs, they bring.
Yeah, we don't really, it's not us, all I'd be more concerned about is when you leave, that the planes is clean.
Yeah.
So back to your fingernail, if it's
Yep.
bigger than your finger, it doesn't matter whether it's soft or hard, it would be,
Preferably not soft, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Let me see if there's anything else. We use the same company. I see you use Pete's Septic.
that's up
We
to you,
use-
that's,
yeah.
you know.
But we try to support as many local in the area as possible. I don't think you have any hotels here in town, but usually we book out the hotels for people coming and things.
Hotel that we provide, you probably wouldn't want to use.
There's the tramp house, right?
I think that's really it. We don't need electricity. We bring a generator in for the music. All music would be done well before 4 o'clock.
We'll say, on the electrical,
Yep.
you're probably gonna wanna get a call to the electrical inspector in town,
Okay.
because if you're gonna have, would you say it was a 25 kilowatt generator, or 125 kilowatt?
It's a 25 kW and it comes in on, it's out of Plastow. It's a company out of Plastow, and it comes in on a trailer and it sets up behind the stage. And then we use a professional stage company out of Portland, Maine, and they come down and it's a stage that actually rolls in on like a trailer, maybe a little bit bigger than this table, and it folds out, and then they connect the.
You might be able to save some money and just use our electricity there, but
I think either way, if it's a generator of that size,
Absolutely.
we're gonna wanna have our electrical inspector
Yep,
just
and
make sure that
they'll
everything's
supply the
done.
certificates and all of that we've done that before as well. And then just, maybe it's too early to ask, but I'll go ahead and ask anyways. Signage, rules can change from town to town on what signage is allowed ahead of time. Like signs, like a banner at the Common, or at the Plains, or lawn signs directing people to where the show is going to be the week of, things like that.
you gentlemen know better, but I think if it's under 30 days, there's really no limit on it.
Okay.
Something for an event like that, temporary signing's not gonna be, as long as you don't come up with billboard size.
No, they're just like an 8-foot banner or a 4x4 sandwich
Yeah.
board sort of sign. That would
It's not gonna be an
put up.
issue as long as it's not up longer than, 30 days or whatever.
Okay, let me see. Trash, we did
Looks like you
that.
want to say something.
I think that's it. We'll start the process, and, as far as I was, relaying to the chief over here that we do have a parking staff, so that helps, alleviate traffic, and so
I
depending
think
on,
the police chief would be able to give you a better answer on that as far as what would be allowed to park around the planes and who to contact for parking at the state or at the schools.
okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why they allowed me to park on the planes. I parked
It's just
on it.
kind of a temporary thing, but I'm just saying for, you know, if it's an outside vendor, I wouldn't feel comfortable with it, to be honest
If
with
it's
you.
if it's a what?
If it's Kingston Days is one thing, it tends to be town residents and it's one
Right.
thing, but if you as an outside vendor, I'm saying I'd rather, myself, I'm just gonna speak for myself, I wouldn't be a fan of parking cars on the planes.
Okay.
I think that's something, once you talk to the police chief, you know, he'll make a recommendation to us.
Okay.
Yeah. What? I was pointing to you. Well, you were in direct line, it was 1 o'clock, it was at.
So just,
You can sit there.
oh, sorry.
That's fine.
Just one last quick question, in regards to once I meet with the three wise men, as you said, once that's
He'll
done.
tell you there's only one that's really wise, the other are just, you know.
Using that term pretty loosely.
Come back and tell us which one said they're the wiser.
I will, I'll find out.
We call him Dumb and Dumber.
Is there a person that I should speak with, like a contact person after I've discussed it with them?
I would say our administrative assistant, Susan.
Okay, and you said they should be signing something. Is there a form that you have, or do?
The facilities use form has a place for them to sign.
Okay, so I'll just grab that back.
Yeah, if you're doing a testing yourself, a lot of times for more minor things, I just distribute them in the office, and once I have all the signatures.
Yeah, it's all filled out. The only thing we're missing is the three wise men signature on there. It even says three wise men.
Okay,
It's gonna hold up for a while.
so I'll go ahead and grab that, and then I'll be in touch.
Go and call them yourself.
Yep.
You had,
It's just a courtesy item, I think, because this would be a private event as opposed to a town event. The Plains is in the center of our historic district, and there's a historic district commission, and although the HDC doesn't have purview over it, I think it probably would be wise to maybe contact the chair of the historic district commission, and just my suggestion. Do as you wish. Thank you.
Thank you.
Virginia Morris, I can get you on the phone with her.
Okay. Last name's Morse?
Morse, yes, M-O-R-S-E. Oh, she may have the number, it may be on the website, but if
I might
not,
be able to
just
find
call
it.
in the morning.
Okay.
I would reiterate, the first thing you want to do is get a hold of the police chief, the fire chief, and the road agent. And
Okay. It's easy enough to find I have the police chief's information already. Them looking for fire, I'm sure I can find that.
Road agent was a gentleman that just left 2 seconds before you got in that seat.
Start with him and he can connect you with the other two.
Yeah.
He looks like trouble. Can I pick somebody else?
He is.
Okay, and then the road agent. Okay, is the road agent like?
Remember, it's the one with the gun that always wins.
Hey, can't argue with that. The road agent, is that like a DPW kind of? Is
Yes.
that basically what that is? Okay.
Yeah.
And they maintain the property? They mow it and all?
The highway does that.
Okay. All right. Is there any other questions? I don't have any others.
Oh, sounds like a nice event. I hope we
Yeah.
can pull it off. I mean, I think it would be something, it would be nice to see something historically done, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. No,
Even
we-
back
we-
in the days of the founding of Kingston, the sixth settlement, there was hawking wares, I'm sure, on the plains. And, so I see the historic value in it.
Yeah, I'd say, and I think that 70% of our vendors are selling antiques and vintage items, and it's the other 35%
Yeah.
are crafts and artisans, so it does play into that. All right, so I'll go ahead and grab that
Mr.
form.
Nadine, very nice to meet you.
You too, thank you.
I don't think you really need this though, right? I'll give it to her, but I don't think you really need it, because it's just, once they do it,
I thought I had to have them sign.
they'll sign it, she holds it, and they go and sign it, right? Or you want to give it to her?
Okay, unless you wanted to get their signatures yourself.
If ever just, you think would be,
I'll leave that with you then, you could do that. and
all right. You'll be
You have my
getting
card.
information.
Give me-
I
I'll
did.
take one of those,
The flyers,
cards, yeah, cards.
It's in your packet.
it has my
Yeah, I want the
contact
hard-
information on the back as well.
Oh, I had one side. Thank you.
Okay, I will be in touch, thank you for your time.
No, thank you. Thank you. Have a great night. From Susan, she attended a Brownfield Solar Conference with the planning board chair, and she has some information she'd like to share.
And don't whisper.
Yeah, it was interesting. A lot of it was, is this good? A lot of it was about Massachusetts and Connecticut, places that don't have the limits that New Hampshire does. As you know, we're still waiting to see if the governor's veto is overridden to get that project size cap from 1 megawatt to 5. Without that, it's really not going to be worth anybody's time and cost to put in a large project. So that being said, I got what information I could. There was, the landfills are part of what they consider brownfields, so even though it's capped and we monitor it, we would have to probably do a phase 1 environmental assessment on it. They'd want to assess the cap, make sure it's going to hold the weight of the
Panels.
That's the word. So there's some preliminary things that need to be done. They wanted to know that 3-phase power was available near the landfill, which I've already talked to Tom, he said it is. They wanted to know if it was a hump or if it was flat, and I really didn't know, but that'll make a difference in, how much space they have there. Plus there's some stormwater management areas out there, so that might limit it. One company did already get back to me and said they'll take a look for free and let me know what they find out, because they won't waste their time if it's not going to work. So I did just some basic stuff. The group net metering doesn't require that energy produced be consumed on site. There was some talk about 20% has to be consumed right there, or that doesn't count when you get to the to the group net metering. They can do our town buildings, our schools, people can sign on. But I think what kind of relieved me, because we got into the weeds with all the kilowatts and how much you can save and all that, you can look at it just that someone's going to lease your land, and they're going to pay you so much per year to lease that land, plus pay taxes. So for that, it just seemed like it would be worth pursuing, even if you're not sure how much you're going to save in energy. I guess that's it. Also, there's some urgency in other states. They've met their amount that they can go to with the utilities, that there's so much the utilities will buy. So there's projects that are on hold in those other states, waiting for next year or whatever. As soon as that opens up in New Hampshire, I believe there will be a lot of projects going, and if you are interested in pursuing it, we should be doing the groundwork, even though it has to go to the town meeting as well. So that's pretty much it. I did put together a list of solar companies the last time we were talking about it. I added a few. So when you're ready to reach out and contact them, we can go from there. Maybe I can find some more.
Based on what you said, I mean, I don't think it would hurt to have even at least 1 or 2 come out, including revision, just to see if it's something that could be done there. Then once we have that information, I mean, it'll be a free-for-all of who's gonna give us the best deal, but I think all of us are on board with using that landfill for solar if we could, right?
We'll see.
I think we're not at a point of signing a contract yet, but it'd be good to know if we could or can't.
No, I mean, we already had the one guy come in here.
Yep.
And pitch us, and I think in that scenario, I wasn't feeling very comfortable because he was an out-of-state buyer, or he was from Colorado. The person who would be buying it, he was just a broker.
Yeah,
for
he
the
is,
whole deal.
yep.
So that person is unknown, I would rather go through a established company where there's gonna be a process. And again, it would, you know, the numbers would have to be sussed out
Yeah.
in order to see the value in it.
You want to, I think, just reach out to all different companies, see what they offer you. One story that was told was from Amesbury. They have 2 landfills there. They're still working on getting them built. But their first company went bankrupt, so that set them back. They had to take a few steps back, get some legal advice, and now they're with a bigger company. That's not to say it won't work with a smaller company, but you want to make sure they've got the right deep pockets enough to see it through, too. It's a big project.
And I did, like, I will say, you know, the county, we looked at possibly doing the same thing. And, I mean, the ideal thing would be is if we could broker it ourselves, but there was just so much to it that I wouldn't be a fan of that. I think we'd have to contract with someone to find a developer that's willing to do it. But at the very least, I think just lay the groundwork and see if something. Did you have something? You went to the same conference. Did you want to add?
Actually, I didn't go to the conference, but I was the one who made the select board, through Susan, aware of it, because it was partly sponsored by the regional planning commissions, and it was put out, and communities were encouraged to have someone attend if they were possibly interested in doing solar work. So, and I was going to do it during public comment, but since I'm sitting here, just thank you for allowing someone from the town to go, and that Susan was willing to do it, and I think that was a good thing. It was good information that she was able to gather, and I also had passed on to Susan at least one sample request for proposals from a town, which is a way to kind of solicit interest from solar developers. And the town would probably want to think about doing something like that at some point. But as Susan said, one of the big gating items here is the legislation that's now been vetoed to increase the net metering cap from 1 megabyte to 5, 1 megawatt to 5. And although it had bipartisan support, and a number of legislators on both sides of the aisle supported it, the governor vetoed it, and it's going to be coming up for an override vote at some point. And some of the lawmakers who have voted for it are being lobbied very heavily to not support the override. So who knows what's going to happen? But that's an open item at this point. And if that does not happen, it'll make the project a lot less attractive, as Susan has identified. And so that will have an impact on what happens for us.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments? Is it okay if we have Susan at least reach out to a few companies to see if the feasibility of putting it there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to take a look
Just
at
to
that
get a
packet that
preliminary-
Glenn gave you, though.
This RFP?
Yes, please.
Any other comments? Okay. So if you can at least look at seeing if it is possible to put it there. Liaison reports.
The Conservation Committee moved their meeting up a week, so I will not miss the meeting next week. So I
nice.
can attend the next week, so we don't have to cover that. I think that's all I've got for that, because we didn't have a heritage meeting. Anything else? Nothing to report. I do have something about the police station. I don't know if you want to cover it now. I've gotten the heat loads back and recommendations for equipment, and I will get with Chief Briggs after I get back, and we'll start talking to vendors and getting some prices on that.
Okay, can I ask where we're at? Because I thought that was already going to be replaced. Is that what?
That's what we're doing. We're in the
Okay.
process of,
No, I thought we already had it budgeted. No, okay.
I think it is budgeted.
Budgeted, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But we're gonna put it out to bid and everything, but we wanted to get a
That's heating and air conditioning, correct?
heating load. We're gonna go, more than likely with, high efficiency heat pump with a propane furnace backup. That way, if we do do a solar investment and we have cheap electricity, we run a heat pump. If we don't, you know, whatever's the cheapest we can use. And
Well, I
typically,
think-
you do an automatic changeover. So if it's above 40, it's heat pump. If it's below 40, it kicks into propane furnace.
Well, I think the original proposal we saw would be the same thing, is that just sells electricity and we get a discount. It's not like we have to use the electricity.
Right.
Anything?
For planning board, we had a developer come on the Hazel Hansen property on 107 Marshall Road area. Seemed to be the consensus, and it was a non-binding meeting, but the consensus was to go with the innovative design where it would be 13 lots, but they would be on the front of the property, and then there would be approximately 30 acres that would be put into conservation on the back side of the property. Different methods of conservation were discussed, but it seemed
I'm
like
sorry, where's this? What property?
107 Marshall Road as you're going north on 107.
Light greenhouse.
Oh, okay, that one, okay, yep.
The house that's
Yep.
been abandoned. So that was one of the big things that took place there, and then a house was, a lot was approved for that. As far as the inspectors meeting, so there was some information that we got from Glenn Greenwood last meeting or the meeting before, regarding Galway and their monster mountain there. I'm recommending that the board take an enforcement action. The planning board has already reached out to them, and then we got a letter from their attorney stating that, no, it's all good, and it isn't all good, because their site plan allows for a material stockpile area that is not where this pile is. The pile's only supposed to be 20 feet tall. That, obviously, seeing it from 125 is probably over 100 feet tall. It's just numerous violations in accordance with that. I think because this was brought to the road agent's attention and my attention, I think we don't need the planning board to make a recommendation to do enforcement action. I can meet with Susan and draft up the letter with her and get it to everybody for signatures this week. But I think there are legitimate concerns there for a number of reasons, not knowing what the material is, and by the look of it, I have some guesses what it may be. So I think we need to get an enforcement action going on. And what I can do is, I will forward the letter that, just for everybody to read again, what Glenn Greenwood, in his investigation via the site plan and when he went out there to that area, and I can also include the letter from their lawyer, but I think we need to send an enforcement action.
Anything?
Sounds good.
And then the only other thing I had, was from the inspectors meeting, is just an after-action review of Kingston Days. It's never really been done, and, you know, the plumbing, the road agent, the police, all these entities are involved in these big events, like we had the Bonfire and Brew Fest, and I think some key people meet, but I think we need to have one where there's an agenda, notes, minutes are taken, and everybody, you know, kind of brings points of improvement and things that we did right too, points that should be carried forward and done in the future, but not, I was surprised to hear it, everybody's talked about it, but I'm not aware of one ever being done for Kingston Days. No one was able to think of that. Is that fairly accurate, Chief, or?
That's correct.
So, I think, you know, it can only benefit for other events, like, you know, this woman who just came in and had that event that she wanted to do. You know, if we're fine-tuning our process and figuring out the best way to close streets down or handle traffic flow, or, you know, whether alcohol sales are in our best interest or anything like that, I think having that kind of forum where that takes place is good for the town, and it just makes us better for, you know, I think it's great to see the planes being used, and the more the better, but, you know, we want to make ourselves as efficient as possible. And then, so I wanted to bring that up. That's all I had.
The 111 Route 25, went out and visited him again. He had taken most of his stuff out of there. He's out of there in 2 weeks,
Okay.
which I'm going back to do another visit.
So it's not being used per se, he's just cleaning it out.
Cleaning his stuff out.
Okay, fair enough.
He's already got a new place to go.
Anything else? It came to my attention today for the building committee, because we're doing the purchasing the land of the Howard property and doing a land swap with, the other property, we have to go to the planning board for a lot line adjustment. So, yet to be determined when we're gonna have it surveyed. It did get put on the planning board's agenda for the next meeting, but it's August 17th, I think, and it won't happen. August 20th, I think, is the date. It's probably not gonna be surveyed, so it won't be able to do anything then. It'll have to be continued to the next meeting, which is September 17th. September 17th?
Third Tuesday in September, whatever date that is.
And I think Dennis should be able to have the lot line done there. If you're okay with it, well, first we got paperwork that we have to get into the planning board to do the lot line adjustment. If you wanna authorize me or to sign it or whatever, or if you wanna sign it, and then the next thing is if you're at the planning board to represent the town.
Yeah, I can certainly represent the town, but as the acting chairperson, probably be better if you signed it.
Okay.
So, will you have the original signing with the first party, and then you have to wait for the second?
No, we're trying to coordinate that, because we can't have the, yeah, apparently there's a holiday that's thrown in the mix.
But I mean, won't it have to go to the planning board to get the lot line adjustment approved before you do the second?
Correct, but that's what we're trying to do, is just get that approved so that it won't be a hindrance when we do the initial close.
I would think that, given that this is a municipal property, and I'd certainly bring it up to the planning board at the next meeting if there are certain things, steps that can be waived as far as timelines that need to be met. Our plans can be into them. I think it's worth asking that, because I think September 17th is cutting it very close.
Well, could they go in ahead of time to perhaps be approved even prior to? So isn't it correct that we were going to do both signings on the same day?
Yeah, but all we need is the survey done. Once the survey's done, they'll have the numbers and they'll be able to approve it then. Then we can close it and it'll be all done. But they need the lot line adjustments in order to approve it. And that's what we're waiting on, is Dennis Quintel.
I guess my point is, we have the conceptual sketch of what the lot line adjustment is gonna be, but we're pending a survey. And again, it's the planning board's discretion, but I can bring that up at the next planning board meeting and just say,
Based on that,
no, just give a conditional approval pending the final survey, because we had some purchase and sales issues and things like that. Not saying the town is any different than any other applicant, but it is, because technically we don't have to do anything.
we don't have to do anything.
But I think we wanna follow all the rules and regulations. We'll just ask for some dispensation in this case to speed things up, and that way that, at least then the planning board is aware of what's planned, and then when the final survey comes in, it's not a ton of questions.
I agree, and that's what I'm kind of bringing forward, so that we're playing by the rules of the planning board to at least get it on their agenda and record and have everything signed. So if someone wants to make that motion to have me authorized to sign it, I'll sign the paperwork tonight.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public comment number 2. Enjoying yourself? Correspondence. Let's see, there was the facilities used for Robert Griffin. We already did that, right?
Yes.
And all we had was the DRA, that we don't have to sign this form. And then, if you don't mind signing that. And this is for, I didn't understand what this one was. The DOT,
I'm not sure what you're looking at.
this is,
During construction zones. There are rules of construction zones.
okay. Well, oh, they're updating the, in 2 intersections, yes, that's what it was. So I just need a motion to authorize me to sign this.
So move.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. What was this here? We have this in
Some
town,
plans.
yeah,
From
we've got,
planning board, just for your review, if you have any comments.
oh, okay. So there's for 3 West Shore Park and for Diamond Oaks.
See those?
Yeah, and this is for, I'll leave this for Mark. We had corresponding letters, one from the general court and one from the governor about the vetoed budget. Anyone interested in that? From Rockingham County, you have your tax assessment, which Kingston went down
Proud of you.
0.3%. I'll have you know that the commissioners put in a budget where there was a 1.99% increase.
I'm proud of you.
Well, no, then the delegation added it and put it to 2.38%. So that 0.39% wasn't on the commissioner's end of it. So you would have even had more of a discount. But that's in here. Cindy sent us this thing just on, she's gonna look at bonding for the, town property, for the fire station. The library is gonna be sending us a check for,
It's on the next page.
here we go, here's the check for $44,000 for what wasn't used for FICA and insurance for full-time employees, so you did send that timely this year. We did get a report from DES regarding Tormeo's property. They found some deficiencies there, mostly with their generators, and assessed a fine to them. And then we did have the information that the chief was gonna get last time from DES about what typically the state looks at for food vendors. And I believe that was handled. We mentioned again, Susan sent out a letter to the health officer reiterating that no water from the plains is gonna be used for Kingston Days. If people need water, there's available at the fire station, but it's non-potable and they have to sign a release for it.
So just to touch on that, that's what we told you to call the state on to see.
They checked food vendors as well.
Yeah, but did they say they would send somebody, or we were gonna have our health officer? do
No,
it?
they would not send it.
Okay, so
Peter did it.
Peter did it, okay.
And then the only other thing, let's see. That was already approved. And then we only had one other thing, was the person asked us to reconsider their taxes. I read it, I still feel how I voted, I don't know if anyone else wants to bring it up again.
I read this quickly, I guess I just didn't
What it is,
understand how it was done.
I don't understand how either. She came to the town and paid the town's tax portion on the vehicle, which is typical. And then the next step is you're paying for the plates. And she typically goes to Epping to pay for the plates. Well, for whatever reason, she decided not to register it. And she wants the rebate back. And why did you pay it? I don't know.
I would say we table this, I'd like to talk to Tammy,
Okay.
and she's already done
Well,
it.
I'll just leave it, the vote still stands unless you want to bring it up at another meeting
Yeah,
to reconsider
We
it.
ought to have some input on it.
There's nothing to table, the vote was already taken, we said no. If someone wants to bring it up, that's within the purview of this board or anyone to bring it up. All right. Detail rate was already signed. The Hampshire Kingston Republicans, we did that raffle. Motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
If it's a July 15th meeting, both public and non-public. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And I think that's it, unless anyone else
One
has
more
it.
non-public.
One non-public? Oh, okay. All right, so with that, the meeting's adjourned. We're gonna go into non-public.
What are we going in under?
What?
For what reason?
For personnel.
Good night.
Thank you.
Pleasure, thank you.
Hope everyone gets to enjoy Kingston Days this Saturday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Thank you very much.
All week.
Oh, that's right, it is the 18th, it's all at night, that's right. Good night, and thank you.
Thank you for controlling the meeting and reading the correspondence ahead of time. That's great.
You don't want me to read it out loud?